Hello, happy May. Even though it's like a couple days in, oh my goodness. Even astrologers, we all have, that's a funny thing is like, even astrologers have charts, right? And we all, even we have transits and things that happen. And the last week has been a little bit of a blur for me, but I'm here. And actually, this is the second time I've recorded this video. I recorded like last week and then I went to go edit. I had like positioned the camera a little bit different and my whole face was like all blurry and everything. So anyway, I'm here now. Welcome. Welcome. I'm Sarah Baxley if we haven't met. Welcome to Pinky the Bear, my channel. Happy May. I cannot freaking believe that it's already May. Anyway, yeah, so I hope that everyone is doing well and hanging in there. And, and I think that that is like a good example, even like how I was talking about my own transits and stuff, is that, even though we have like how I do this video like once a month, or, there's like horoscopes and different things, like I cannot stress enough like how complex that astrology actually is. And, I would definitely recommend supporting your local astrologer for yourself, for your own personal growth, for like the themes that you're at in your life right now, whether or not that's me or someone else. I cannot express enough like how complex it actually is. And I know that we just see things about like sun sign astrology and all of that stuff like in the media and everything else, but it's like beyond. One of the things that I personally love the most about it is I feel like I could be in my 80s and still learning new things because it's so vast and complex, and that makes my brain really happy to think about. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there because, like I do these videos once a month and it's like a general transit. It's kind of like the general air, right, of like the universe, or like of our, of our world of society and things, right? It's like general transits and things that are going on about the planets and where they're currently at in our solar system. But depending upon like what your own personal chart looks like, when certain transits hit, it could be like hands on a clock. So it's like, it could signify, that's why sometimes it could be a really difficult time for some people, why for other people, it's totally peachy keen. So I just want to throw that out there. But, like the general transits are good. So even if there's not something that's going on specifically in your life, there's a good chance that someone else that's close to you, a colleague or something else is going through, some of these things because maybe it's at their chart. So anyway, with that being said, so the two upcoming themes for this month are, number one, serious thoughts, and number two, communication station. So it's interesting because the first, this month is really interesting because like the first couple weeks, the first week of May and the second week of May are kind of a little bit more, I don't want to say like on the somber end, but there's definitely a little bit more of like difficult transits. Now I'm posting this video, the first week of May has already passed here. So those of you watching can kind of like reflect back and see, because we had a Mercury Saturn square, we had a Mercury Pluto square, and basically Mercury governs like our thoughts and our communication process, and Saturn itself is like rules, restrictions, and boundaries. And when you have those two making a 90-degree angle to one another, that's called a square. And it's kind of like, it's kind of like opposing forces kind of like coming through and kind of trying to understand. So it can, so Mercury Saturn square can kind of promote more of like, like pessimistic thinking, or just kind of things maybe looking like worse than they actually are. We also have the South Node up in the mix, which doesn't necessarily help the situation, but so the first week of May is a little bit challenging, and then we have Venus. So the second week of May, we have Venus come to do the same squaring that Mercury did in the first week. And Venus, instead of about communication like Mercury, Venus rules our, Venus governs our money and our relationships, and, you know, it's kind of like that which makes things kind of like soft and fluffy and nice and comfortable, right? And so when you have kind of like rules, restrictions, and boundaries on things like regarding your relationships or finances or whatever else, I mean, that also can kind of feel a little bit somber, you know? So some people might maybe get a little bit more serious about spending this week, or maybe a little bit more serious about, you know, certain relationships. There's definitely more of like a serious undertone that's going on these first 2 weeks of May. So, you know, so it's interesting. So it's a 5-week month, this month. And, you know, after those first 2 weeks, you know, when we come up with the third week, which let me just look at my calendar. So when we come up on the 12th, right, the week of the 12th, things kind of start to feel a little bit softer. There's a little bit of a softer tone. And, you know, there is a full moon at the end of that week. So we just have the new moon in Taurus, and new moons signify like new beginnings or like a new mini chapter, right? And, you know, events slowly sort of build, right? Things sort of build momentum as the moon in the sky waxes and gets larger and larger until it hits the full moon. And in which case, this full moon this month is on May 18th, right? So it's a Saturday. But that week, the week of the 12th, you know, it's almost like we've kind of have our like rough and tumble, like the first 2 weeks of May. And then that third week of May is definitely, you know, there's a little bit more of, I think it's kind of just kind of like leveling things out a bit, right? But it's interesting because there is a Venus-Uranus conjunction that's on the same day of the full moon. Now, as we mentioned, Uranus had entered or re-entered Taurus. It dipped into it a little bit last year, but re-entered Taurus for the first time in 84 years. And it's very much about, you know, sudden change or sudden happenings. And again, Venus rules like our relationships or our finances or anything else. And it doesn't really have to be like a sudden change that's bad. It could also be a sudden change that's good, but it's almost just like something kind of like spontaneous or kind of coming out of nowhere sometimes it could feel like. And when we have that like on the full moon, it's almost like we have these first 2 weeks that were kind of a little bit somber. Then starting the 12th of this month, it's definitely, you know, like more of like more of a relaxing tone that we have going on that week. There's not really a whole lot of hard aspects that are going on. Venus enters Taurus, Mars enters Cancer, which is a little bit of a tricky thing, but we're not really going to feel that until later on as it goes through, as it, you know, progresses through Cancer. But then that full moon itself, it's almost like there could be maybe themes that happen in that second week when we had those Venus-Saturn squares kind of resurface unexpectedly on the full moon on the 18th. So just sort of keep that in mind. Now, the last 2 weeks of May, May 19th through the 30th, right into June 1st, it's all about communication. So back to that second theme, which is communication station. The last 2 weeks of May are like it's all about making connections and, you know, especially that last week of May, like if you're looking into, you know, creating a podcast or, you know, maybe you're a writer, maybe you're looking to publish something, or maybe you're looking to kind of finally buckle down and sit down on that maybe creative project that you've been working on in regards to communication, right? Whether or not it's written word or spoken word, that's a really great time to do it. Both anytime between the 19th and the 31st is kind of like a really great time to do that. Or actually, let's say the 21st, after the 21st, because the 21st, the sun enters Gemini, and Gemini is ruled by Mercury, so it's all about kind of like communication back and forth. And on that same day, we also have Mercury itself entering Gemini, and then the sun conjunct Mercury. So that's like a lot. It's like an explosion of like a lot of stuff going on. And yeah, so those last 2 weeks are really going to be excellent weeks as far as communication or creative processes or any of that kind of stuff is concerned. So if anyone's had any of those things kind of like up their sleeve, you know, like maybe you had a podcast brewing or certain ideas, or, you know, maybe you write poetry, or, you know, any one of those things, right? Maybe you do like blog writing, or maybe you were thinking about doing it. Any of those things, those last 2 weeks are really, really great creative weeks, specifically in regards to communication. So that's kind of just something to keep in mind. But anyway, that's kind of it really for the month of May. I wanted to let you all know that I will be in Seattle. So there's the Northwest Astrological Conference that's coming up the end of this month. And so I will be there. So if you don't already follow me on Instagram, so check it out. Make sure that you are, because I'll be posting a lot of content around that time. It'll be a really exciting time just to kind of meet with other astrologers as we speak our crazy language of the stars. And yeah, it's nice. It's nice to kind of get out there, and yeah, and I'll definitely be sharing some content with all of you with that. So anyway, so that's everything. Thank you so much for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe if you're watching this from YouTube, or follow if you're watching this from Instagram, and I will talk to you soon. Cheers.